The early 1970s were a time of major shifts in culture, society, and technology. One of the biggest moments was the Roe v. Wade decision in 1973, where a U.S. Supreme Court legalized abortion, giving women the right to choose and setting off ongoing debates about reproductive rights. At the same time, the World Trade Center opened in New York City, symbolizing American economic power. Sadly, the Twin Towers would later be destroyed in the 9/11 attacks. 1973 also saw the launch of Skylab, U.S.'s first space station, which provided important insights into human spaceflight. On a different note, martial arts legend Bruce Lee tragically died that same year, but his influence on both martial arts and movies has lived on. The 1970s also gave birth to hip-hop, which started in the Bronx. DJ Kool Herc helped create a new musical movement by spinning backbeats at parties, sparking a global cultural revolution. Then there was The Exorcist, the terrifying film released in 1973 that became an instant classic, changing the horror genre forever. But the thing on everyone's mind was rock and roll. It was a singer who said everyone wanted to rock and roll all night and party every day. These events, from the Supreme Court decisions to the rise of new cultural movements, helped shape the modern world in ways that are still felt today. So take a step back with me to the year 1973, the year in rock. Aerosmith's self-titled debut is raw, gritty, and full of the swagger that would later define their career. Released in 1973, this album introduces the world to Steven Tyler's raspy vocals, Joe Perry's bluesy riffs, and the band's undeniable chemistry. While it doesn't yet have the polish or the hit-making prowess of their later work, it's an essential snapshot of a hungry band carving out their identity. The opening track, Make It, is a statement of intent, a scrappy, no-frills rocker with a hint of Tyler's cocky charisma. But it's Dream On that stands out as the album's crown jewel. The haunting ballad, driven by Tyler's piano and soaring vocals, hints at the anthemic sound Aerosmith would perfect in years to come. It's both reflective and ambitious, a song that feels timeless, even on its raw debut. I liken this song to Aerosmith's Stairway to Heaven, and it delivers every single time. The production is relatively straightforward, emphasizing the band's live energy and unpolished charm. While it's clear they were still finding their footing, Aerosmith is a solid debut that captures the spirit of a band on the verge of greatness. It's the spark that would ignite a decades-long rock and roll legacy. By the time Sabbath Bloody Sabbath was released, Black Sabbath had already established themselves as the forefathers of heavy metal. But this album marked a turning point. It wasn't just heavy, it was sophisticated, experimental, and layered with complexity. It showed that Sabbath wasn't content to rest on their laurels. They were evolving. The opening riff of the title track is one of Tony Iommi's most iconic creations, a crushing wave of sound that sets the tone for the album. Ozzy Osbourne's vocals are even more dynamic than ever, shifting between ominous and soaring. The song builds to an intense crescendo, blending doom and melody in a way that feels both cathartic and unsettling. In his 2009 memoir, I Am Ozzy, Osbourne wrote, "It was our last truly great album, I think. And with the music, we'd managed to strike just the right balance between our old heaviness and our new experimental side." The production, it's richer and it's more polished than previous albums, allowing the band's musical intricacies to shine. With Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, Black Sabbath didn't just double down on their doom-laden roots. They expanded their horizons, proving that heavy metal could be just as nuanced and ambitious as any other genre. Quadrophenia isn't just a rock opera, it's an emotional odyssey. The Who's second foray into concept album format takes the adolescent angst of Tommy and amplifies it into something grander, more personal, even profoundly affecting. This is Pete Townshend's baby, deeply introspective work that reflects his own struggles with identity and belonging. The story follows Jimmy, a young mod grappling with his fractured sense of self. Townshend brilliantly represents this through the album's 4 leitmotifs, each tied to a member of the band and a facet of Jimmy's personality. The music is a tapestry of crashing waves, soaring guitars, Keith Moon's thunderous drumming, capturing the chaotic emotions of youth. The Real Me sets the tone with its relentless energy and introspective lyrics. It's a cry for validation and understanding, carried by John Entwistle's jaw-dropping bass work. 5:15, it's pure rock theater, a train ride through Jimmy's mental chaos, with horns and keys adding a touch of surrealism. But honestly, it's the quieter moments, like Love Reign O'er Me, that hit hardest. Roger Daltrey's vocal performance is nothing short of transcendent, pouring every ounce of emotion into this plea for redemption. The instrumental title track, Quadrophenia, showcases Townshend's compositional genius, weaving the album's themes into a stunning orchestral rock piece. Pete Townshend, on recording Quadrophenia, he says, "The reason why that album is so important to me is that I think it's The Who's last great album, really. And The Who never really recorded something so ambitious or audacious again. And it was kind of the last album where Keith Moon was in a fit state to be a working member of the band. He kind of went off into space after that, so it's a poignant album for me. It's a precious album for me. And it's a kind of a turning point album for me as well." This album is the sound of a band at their peak, firing on all cylinders. It's messy, it's ambitious, and it's sometimes overwhelming. But isn't that what adolescence is like? Quadrophenia is The Who's masterpiece, a deeply human work that resonates long after the final note. Montrose's self-titled debut album is often hailed as the blueprint for American hard rock. Featuring a young, fiery Sammy Hagar on vocals and guitar wizard Ronnie Montrose at the helm, this record is lean, mean, and packed with unforgettable riffs. It's a no-frills, high-octane rock and roll record that influenced everyone from Van Halen to literally you name the 80s metal band, they all loved Montrose. Now, Rock the Nation, which is the first song off of the album, kicks things off with a swagger and purpose, a rallying cry for freedom and rebellion. Hagar's powerful, gravelly voice commands attention, while Montrose's guitar tone, crisp, crunchy, and perfectly distorted, drives the track forward. Rock Candy actually slows things down just enough to groove, with its thick, crunchy riffs and Hagar's soulful vocals giving it a seductive swagger. Sammy Hagar would look back on the album Montrose and say, "Yes, I do feel a lot of stuff for that album. And when I hear something like Rock Candy or Make It Last, God, I sound like this young kid. I just can't believe that I'm as old as I am when I hear it because I don't feel any different." This production, handled by Ted Templeman, who would then go on to produce Van Halen, is tight and focused, letting each instrument shine without overshadowing the others. Every single track on this album feels purposeful, and there's not 1 ounce of fat on the album. Montrose didn't just debut a band, it debuted a sound, one that would reverberate through the rock world for decades to come. Alice Cooper released Billion Dollar Babies, an album that straddles the line between theatrical excess and biting social commentary. This is Alice Cooper at the height of his power, a band and frontman reveling in the shock rock image they perfected, while delivering music that's both entertaining and thought-provoking. The big hit off of this album is No More Mr. Nice Guy, and that song in particular blends sharp humor with autobiographical defiance, turning Alice's infamy into a triumphant sing-along. The album's darker moments, like I Love the Dead and Sick Things, delve into the macabre territory with a theatrical flair. These tracks push the boundaries of taste while remaining strangely catchy, proving Alice's ability to balance shock value with solid songwriting. Alice Cooper once said the whole idea behind the Billion Dollar Babies album was exploiting the idea that people do have sick perversions. Bob Ezrin's production, it's impeccable, layering the tracks with strings, sound effects, and a touch of glam decadence. Billion Dollar Babies is a decadent carnival ride, inviting listeners to laugh, cringe, and rock out all at once. It's a masterpiece of a controlled chaos that solidified Alice Cooper's place as a pioneer of theatrical rock. If albums were films, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road would be a sprawling Technicolor epic. This double album captures Elton John and lyricist Bernie Taupin at their creative peak. It's ambitious, eclectic, and packed with hits that would become Elton John's defining tracks. The title track, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, is both nostalgic and introspective. Taupin's lyrics evoke a longing to escape the trappings of fame and return to a simpler life, while Elton's melody feels wistful yet grand. It's a song that feels both intimate and universal, a hallmark of their greatest collaborations. Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting injects a burst of adrenaline into the track list. It's brash, loud, and unapologetically fun. A pure rock and roll anthem that captures the rowdy energy of a bar brawl. What makes this album truly remarkable is its range. Elton and Bernie seamlessly transition from the glam rock of Your Sister Can't Twist to the melancholic beauty of Harmony. The production, helmed by Gus Dudgeon again, is lush and layered, with every instrument and vocal line meticulously placed. Gus Dudgeon on Elton John's Process. We probably would have never made a double album if it wasn't for the fact that we went to Jamaica and Elton was in a roaring mood, Dudgeon said in a 1993 interview. He just wrote song after song after song. And then when we went to France, he was so used to sitting down at the piano and writing songs before sessions began that he wrote some more. Suddenly, we had 2 full albums worth. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road isn't just an album. It's a world unto itself, one that invites you to get lost in its stories, sounds, and emotion. Marvin Gaye followed the socio-political brilliance of What's Going On with an album that turned inward, diving deep into the themes of love, desire, and intimacy. Let's Get It On is more than just a collection of romantic songs. It's a sensual manifesto, a masterclass in how to express vulnerability and longing through music. The title track, Let's Get It On, is the kind of song that could melt butter. Marvin's voice, smooth as silk, floats over lush strings and a slinky groove. It's seductive without being explicit, a celebration of love's physical and emotional sides. The track became an instant classic, cementing Gaye's reputation as a musical romantic. Ed Townsend, a songwriter-producer who had worked for Etta James, Nat King Cole, Dee Dee Warwick, and many others, said about Marvin, "Marvin could sing the Lord's Prayer, and it would have sexual overtones." That the production, led by Marvin himself, is rich and layered, with orchestral strings weaving through deep bass lines and delicate percussion. The sound feels both intimate and expansive, like a whispered confession echoing in a cathedral. With Let's Get It On, Marvin Gaye didn't just create an album, he created a mood, a movement, and a timeless masterpiece. Bruce Springsteen's debut album is a snapshot of an artist brimming with unfiltered creativity and lyrical ambition. While it lacks the arena-ready anthems of his later work, Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey is a treasure trove of poetic storytelling and youthful energy. It's Bruce in his rawest form, a scrappy bard spinning tales of dreamers, misfits, and small-town struggles. The album opens with Blinded by the Light. You recognize that song. A torrent of surreal imagery and wordplay. It's almost overwhelming, like Springsteen crammed every idea he'd ever had into one song. Manfred Mann's later cover may have polished the track into the hit. but the original burst with an unrefined charm. Bruce Springsteen on the origin of his Greetings from Asbury Park album's postcard cover, a departure from Columbia Records' attempt to make him the new Bob Dylan, but from New York City. I was wary of that particular approach, so I was literally walking down the boardwalk in Asbury, and the postcard was there on a postcard stand, and I pulled it out. And I said, "Yeah, I'm from New Jersey. Who's from New Jersey?" Nobody. It's all mine. What makes Greetings from Asbury Park so compelling is its sense of place. You can almost feel the sea air and hear the boardwalk noises as Bruce paints vivid portraits of Asbury Park's inhabitants. The album might not have achieved commercial success upon release, but it's the foundation of Springsteen's mythology, a glimpse of a young artist destined for greatness. The New York Dolls' self-titled debut is a beautifully messy, genre-defying record that paved the way for punk, glam, and everything in between. This is rock and roll stripped of its pretensions, dripping with attitude, chaos, and raw energy. The Dolls didn't care about polish or perfection. They cared about making music that felt alive. David Johansen reminisces on the New York Dolls' early days. He said, "I know where we began. People would say, 'Why do you play like that?' And we would look at them like, 'This is the way we play. We don't know how to play any other way.' It wasn't like we created some sort of sound on purpose or something. We had this very strong ethic about rock and roll, how rock and roll should be. People would ask us, 'What type of music is this?' And we're like, 'It's rock and roll music. What do you think it is?' And then Johansen would then point out that the Dolls drew upon the sound and the approach of, well, among others, Little Richard and girl groups and soul bands, and put it all together. Johnny Thunders' guitar work is the secret weapon of this album. His riffs are sloppy but magnetic, combining Chuck Berry-inspired rock with a raw edge that would become the blueprint for punk guitarists. The production, handled by Todd Rundgren, walks a fine line between embracing the band's chaotic energy and giving the album enough structure to hold together. New York Dolls is a loud, brash, and unapologetically fun. It's the sound of a band that couldn't care less about convention, and in doing so they created an album that still feels dangerous and exhilarating today. If Chaos had a soundtrack, it would be Raw Power. The album was released and produced by David Bowie with some help from Iggy Pop. This album is pure, unfiltered aggression, a primal scream that would define the punk aesthetic before punk was even a thing. It's not just music, it's an assault on your senses. Search and Destroy opens the album like a Molotov cocktail through your speakers. James Williamson's jagged guitar riffs slice through the mix, while Iggy Pop delivers lines like, "I must keep walking cheetah with a hat full of napalm," with an intensity that almost feels feral. The energy is relentless, and the production captures every raw, jagged edge. The title track, Raw Power, is a 3-minute burst of unrestrained energy, a perfect encapsulation of the band's ethos. It's loud, dirty, and utterly unapologetic. Even slower tracks like I Need Somebody carry a sense of menace, a simmering tension that threatens to explode at any moment. The album's original mix was controversial, with Bowie opting for a thin lo-fi sound that divided critics. Iggy's later remaster, which cranked everything up to 11, sparked just as much debate. But the rawness of Raw Power is part of its magic. It's not supposed to sound clean or polished. It's music on the brink of destruction, and that is exactly why it endures. The band's manager would fire the band in 1974 due to them spending all of their advance money on drugs. But even after the breakup, Raw Power received widespread critical acclaim, and more importantly, its impact has endured for generations. It stands as a defining album in punk and hardcore music. The aggressive guitar riffs and Iggy Pop's fiery, defiant vocals capture the voice of disillusioned youth expressing their frustration. However, Raw Power's influence extends beyond those genres. Tracks like Your Pretty Face Is Going to Hell and the title track not only shaped the New York Dolls, but also echoed through the harder edges of the 80s Sunset Strip metal scene, influencing bands like Guns N' Roses and Faster Pussycat. Additionally, this record is pivotal in the garage rock scene, serving as a model for artists wanting to keep their music raw and unpolished. It's easy to see how raw power would resonate deeply with musicians like Jack White and John Spencer. Billy Joel's Piano Man is the album that introduced the world to Joel's storytelling prowess and his uncanny ability to turn everyday moments into timeless songs. It's a collection of vignettes, snapshots of life's small triumphs and tragedies set to Joel's masterful piano melodies. Now, the title track Piano Man is more than a song. It's an anthem for dreamers and the downtrodden. Joel weaves a tapestry of characters from the bartender to the failed novelist, all bound together by the music of a piano man. The melody is instantly recognizable, and the harmonica intro is iconic. It's a song that feels both intimate and universal, like it's speaking directly to you. In a 2017 interview with Rolling Stone magazine, they asked him what he thinks about when he sings Piano Man on stage. Joel claimed that it's gratifying to hear an audience sing your words, but it's more about feeling than thinking on stage. Piano Man, it's the sound of an artist finding his voice, both literally and figuratively. It's not yet the polished, arena-filling Billy Joel of later years, but that's part of its charm. It's raw, honest, and filled with the kind of storytelling that would become his signature. Mott is Mott the Hoople's Phoenix moment, a triumphant follow-up to the David Bowie-fueled success of All of the Young Dudes, and a declaration of the band's independence. The album is raw, reflective, explorative of fame, identity, and the struggles of life as a rock band, with enough glam rock swagger to make even Ziggy Stardust envious. From the opening notes of All the Way from Memphis, it's clear this isn't just another glam rock record. Ian Hunter's snarling vocals, paired with Mick Ralph's rollicking guitar, drive the story of a musician who's lost his guitar in transit. It's a tongue-in-cheek anthem for road-weary rockers everywhere, with a stomping piano riff that makes the track irresistibly fun. Then comes the Ballad of Mott the Hoople. Now, this song is the emotional centerpiece of the album. It's a brutally honest reflection on the band's near breakup and their struggle to find meaning and success. The line, "Rock and roll's a loser's game," hits like a gut punch, encapsulating the bittersweet nature of their journey. The album ends on a high note with "I Wish I Was Your Mother," a poignant, mandolin-driven ballad about regret and longing. Hunter's vocals are raw and vulnerable, making it the most heartfelt moments in Mott's discography. Mott isn't just an album. As I've said for basically all of these albums, it's a manifesto, a love letter to rock and roll's grit and glory. It's the sound of a band embracing their flaws, their fame, and their future with open arms. Queen's self-titled debut isn't just a record. It's an opening act for what would become one of the most celebrated bands in rock history. Released in 1973, this album encapsulates raw ambition and burgeoning genius. While it might not yet have the polish of A Night at the Opera, you can hear the band laying down the DNA of their iconic sound. The album's lead track, Keep Yourself Alive, bursts forth with Brian May's trademark guitar sound, achieved through his homemade Red Special guitar and a meticulous layering technique. The riff is both propulsive and regal, a fitting introduction to a band destined for arenas. Freddie Mercury's vocal range is already on full display, flipping from silky falsettos to commanding growls. You can feel his theatrical flair pushing against the boundaries of traditional rock. Brian May, the guitarist for Queen, described the process as, "It was very tough because we never knew when we were going to get back in there. Tapes got jumbled up and kind of lost. There was a discontinuity. Sometimes we had to have a different engineer who didn't realize what we'd done before, it was really kind of a mess. It was hodgepodge, difficult to hold it together. They were tough times, he says. The production, while somewhat restrained by the technology and budget of the time, still manages to create a sense of grandeur. Roy Thomas Baker's meticulous approach to overdubs and harmonies ensures that even the quieter moments shimmer. Queen's debut feels like a band sort of announcing, "This is who we are, and we're only getting started." The Dark Side of the Moon is less an album and more an existential journey, a sonic dissertation on life, death, time, and the human condition. It's a masterpiece of both concept and execution, with every note, sound effect, and lyric meticulously crafted to form a cohesive whole. This is Pink Floyd's magnum opus, the album that transformed them to underground prog rock experimenters into global icons. From the first heartbeat in Speak to Me to the final echo of Eclipse, the album feels like a loop, a reflection of life's cyclical nature. The themes are universal, yet deeply personal. The pressures of modernity, the passage of time, and the inevitability of mortality. Roger Waters' lyrics are philosophical without being pretentious, while David Gilmour's guitar solos, oh my God, those guitar solos, they carry an emotional weight that words just can't express. Money is the important song on the album, and it's with its iconic cash register loop, it's a biting critique of capitalism wrapped in an irresistibly funky groove. Rick Wright's keyboards shine on The Great Gig in the Sky, where Claire Torrey's wordless vocal performance feels like a spiritual awakening. Nothing had really stuck for the pre-production of the album until Roger Waters leaned into the human condition with the metal album closer, Echoes. From there, the groundwork for Dark Side was in place. As soon as Roger came in with his idea of its central themes of how the pressures of modern life can affect your sanity, it started taking a shape from there on, I would say. But that feeling that we were onto a real magical something came a bit later down the line, I think. Now, the production was groundbreaking, with Alan Parsons engineering an auditory landscape that feels almost three-dimensional. The use of tape loops, synthesizers, and unconventional sound effects was revolutionary for its time, and the album's seamless transitions between tracks get a cinematic quality. Listening to Dark Side of the Moon isn't just an auditory experience. It's an emotional and intellectual one. It's the kind of album that feels different every single time you listen to it, revealing new layers and nuances as you return to it over the years. So there it is, the year in rock, 1973, in all of its visceral, chaotic, yet tempered self. What did I leave out? What would you have put in this video? Share your thoughts below. I think that this was a pivotal year towards something bigger and something much more grand. And with all of the ideas in place, a new genre of music was about to rise up. Take care, and remember to always stay rockin'.